Welcome to the Online Success Journey Podcast, your opportunity to discover and learn from entrepreneurs like yourself. This is not your typical podcast, but a place where you can get the real story and find out how real people encounter speed bumps and detours, but journey through to find success. Now here's your host for the Online Success Journey Podcast, Patience.
Hello everyone and welcome to Online Success Journey. This is episode 109. Are you ready to join the clan? Today we have Jeffrey Slayter, the top researcher of leadership and self-awareness and its application to the high-performing awakening entrepreneurs. His mission is to support the awakening of entrepreneurs while helping them achieve even greater outcomes for their purpose, profit, people, and the planet. Hello, Jeff.
Hello. Grateful to be on. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I know the clan here is anxious to hear your story, so let's get started with the basics. Can you tell my clan a little bit about your background, what you did before you started your own online business?
Sure, no problem. It started when I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I was born there, and I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family, and that came with a lot of struggles and challenges at the beginning. Our family struggled financially while my father started his company, and it was tough to make ends meet at times. And then with persistence, and that's one of the biggest things is persistence seems to win. And my father persisted and began to make ends meet for the family. And really what began to happen was he started a software company, and that was acquired. And then we got asked to move to Silicon Valley. So we moved from Hawaii to Silicon Valley. Now that was challenging as a kid because I went from the islands to this very fast-paced environment, and sometimes that can be challenging. But we went to Silicon Valley, where obviously Google, LinkedIn, and all these great companies are there. And then my father, I watched him start this other company in Silicon Valley, and he got when his company was acquired, we were required, like I said, we were required to go to Silicon Valley, and then what happened was, he was required to have a job when he went there, because part of the acquisition was to actually have a job. And that's what they do when they buy companies, is they give you what's called golden handcuffs. And so he had what was called golden handcuffs, and he was required to stay in this position. And then sooner or later, I think he got a little frustrated. And I think that happens to entrepreneurs, is when they have jobs and they want to do something different. And so when I was about 12 or 11 or so, he started this other company, and I watched it start on the kitchen table. And I remember just how funny it was to come down and see all these computers at the kitchen table working away. And what turned out to be, he was the co-founder and first CEO of Odesk, which many people know. And so that's kind of my background in the early days of my childhood, growing up around entrepreneurism. And that company now, it was interesting to watch, because I watched something go from almost nothing to the biggest in the industry. And then, of course, I had to pave my own path. And I graduated college and went to a little school. I was terrible in school. I was just not very good. I can't read very well. And spelling's not my thing. And so college was very challenging for me. Same with high school. And I was one of those kids with, quote, ADD or whatever they call it. And I felt pretty funny in the school system, almost like the school system wasn't built for me. But I still had to get through it. So I ended up graduating in business. And then what happened was I started getting into real estate. I started buying real estate very early on as a kid, and acquired my first property when I was about, 21 or so. I flipped it, made some money. And then fast forward years later, so I was about 27, I had done very well in real estate. And then all of a sudden it came crashing down, and I was left with almost nothing. And I felt pretty worthless at the time. And that kind of happens as you go out. I think I made one mistake, and which was I tried to do a home run in building wealth. And what happened was I was doing base hits. I was just building wealth one step at a time, buying one property at a time and everything. And then there's this huge real estate development deal that I got into. And sure enough, I basically tried to hit a home run with wealth. And then what the developers, the banks ended up pulling the loans in the middle of the construction project, and it turned messy. And I pretty much lost everything. And I went from multiple millions to almost nothing by the time I was about 27, and that was very hard. And then what happened was I got asked in the middle of all that. I got asked to go speak at this one seminar. I got asked to go to a seminar, and I was in the back of the room, and the guy asked me to come up on stage, and he said, "Hey, I know that you've been studying esoterics and studying transformation work. Can you work with this particular woman on her relationship with money?" And now what I didn't say was that since I started buying real estate at 21, I was attending lots of seminars, reading all kinds of personal development books, and I was meditating consistently and going to ashrams and doing everything I can to grow myself while building the wealth. And then he knew that, and he pulled me up on stage and he said, "Work with this person." And I did, and then she had a big shift on stage, and he asked me, "Would you like to come back and speak on transformation and business entrepreneurism and how that intertwines?" And he asked me back, and I came back and made a couple $1,000s, and then came back again, and it turned into another speaking engagement, another one, and then fast forward years later, ended up on the biggest stage in the world with people like Sir Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, Dean Martini, speaking about entrepreneurship, self-awareness, and how it applies to having a full life in the way that whatever people's soul's journeys are. And while I was doing that, I got many business opportunities and many opportunities to rebuild my wealth, and also got to share a message. And I guess that's how I ended up here, you know?
Wow, what a journey, Jeffrey. Okay.
Yeah, it's very...
All right. What is the most dangerous belief an online entrepreneur can have?
The most dangerous belief let's see. The most dangerous belief is that you have. This is an interesting statement it's counterintuitive for people, but is that you have to believe. That's an interesting belief. Is that you have to believe. I think that when we get wrapped up in changing our beliefs all the time and trying to adjust them, we might miss out on the voice of the soul. And the voice of the soul is what is your soul's journey. And so I like to go beyond beliefs into the soul's journey of who we are and what our path is beyond the programming and belief structures. And one of the biggest, most dangerous beliefs is that you have to believe. All you have to do is you have to take the actions, and then on top of that, you have to feel your own soul and what it's called to do. And inside of that, it'll naturally unfold instead of trying to force ourselves to believe positive thinking all the time, instead of just receiving what's already due for us. And what's already due for us as human beings is to connect to our true selves beyond the programming of beliefs and positive thinking, and go back to really the original premise of who we are as human beings, which are meant to do certain things. For an example of that would be, like a bird doesn't believe it's a good singer, it just sings. A bird just sings because it sings. There's no reason to do it. And so each of us have a soul's journey that we're meant to be on, and we have to just listen to that journey beyond the programming itself.
Why do you do what you do, Jeffrey?
I used to have a reason, and that's as I spent time speaking all over the world, I thought it was because I want to change the world. But what I later realized was that was a big distraction to myself. And what I mean by that is that often I was out there to change the world, but I have to remember to change myself. And so I do what I do to shift myself, but myself is connected to everything around me, and therefore if I shift myself, I shift the world.
Why is achievement not all it's cracked to be?
Oh yeah, why is achievement not all it's cracked up to be? Because achievement can be very blinding, and we've been programmed as human beings that when we get the nice house, the nice car, the nice house, the perfect place to live, the beach, the house on the beach, or whatever we want, that it's going to make us happier. When actually there's something beyond that, beyond achievement. And I'm not saying that that's bad. People should definitely go get that. It's just when I started to receive that for myself, I realized that most of what I was trying to achieve was a lie, and it didn't make me any happier. And what I discovered in myself is that it's the mundane things that make me happy. It's the little things like a walk on the beach and having a good piece of toast and my good friends. And when I'm able to keep that in perspective, then I'm able to no longer be blinded by achievement.
Let's put man aside, because you had money when you were 20 years old. Let's put man aside. How did you know you were successful?
I didn't. I feel that I think I felt because I was in school and I had to challenge in school, I felt like I was kind of worthless as a kid and didn't really have much to bring to the world. And what I discovered within myself was that that particular belief drove me to be, quote, successful because I was not feeling good about myself. And then when I finally moved past that, I realized that I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be, whether I achieve or not.
Can anyone be an entrepreneur?
What most people, there's a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs because it's cool and it's a thing to do. But what they don't realize is that there's a lot of challenges along the way. And in order to accept things going right, we have to be able to accept things going wrong. And there's a lot of things that, quote, go wrong as an entrepreneur, a lot of challenges. And if you're willing to face those challenges, it's a little bit like they asked Michelangelo, how did they make the statue of David? And he said they chipped away everything that wasn't David and is left with David. And essentially, entrepreneurism is a little bit like Michelangelo, and you're chipping away everything that you think you're not. And those chips can be struggling those little chips can be struggling financially. They can be hard times, hard nights. They can be challenges. And if you're up to the challenges and you're willing to face those challenges and realize that you're stronger than you think as human beings, then you're ready to be an entrepreneur.
What is one thing no one knows about you?
Um, let's see. One thing no one knows of me. I really, I think one of my most favorite things to do is to put my feet in the sand, and that's my most favorite thing to do, and feel the beach. And I just love it. And people will say, "Oh, that's so simple and weird," and what about like all the things you've done or the people you've supported? And I think for me, it's that little mundane thing of feeling my toes in the sand that gives me life.
Do you have a mentor or a coach?
Yes, I do. I have some wonderful, wonderful people in my life. I used to really look up to many of the big other thought leaders like, Elon Musk and Richard Branson and Tony Robbins, and I think they're great and they're incredible. But what I've realized is that they're just people doing the best they can with the choices that they have, and no one's above or below anybody else. So I guess my biggest mentor now is my true self beyond the programming and my relationship with my heart and what I'm here to do and my soul. So if I had a mentor, it would be my connection to the universe. The universe is the best mentor.
Wow. What have you learned from the universe?
How little I know about this world, and how little I know about what it is to be human. There's so much more to learn, and what I've learned is that most of the programming that I grew up with, in the indoctrination system, or known as school, is that most of what I spend my time doing is unlearning everything that I know.
What is beyond programming of purpose?
Beyond the programming of purpose, I feel is something that doesn't lie in words, because this language that we use as human beings is derived from a commerce language that's used to trade, and it's limited in its expression. That's why often there's many stories of tribes getting their language getting abolished. I mean, in the Hawaiian people itself, they made the Hawaiian language illegal to teach in school, which is one of the ways that the system enslaves us, is they give us only one language, which is designed to separate us and to create commerce. And so if I look for what my purpose is, it will not be held in language. It will be held in something other than this English language, probably more appropriate to like some sort of song or rhythm, because the universe is constructed by literally by vibrations itself. But that's a little hippie, so I'll break it out and say my purpose and what is beyond purpose is a knowing.
What is one thing that has contributed to your success so far?
My time in the Amazon jungles and the Andes mountains, and getting out of this rat race life, and going in deep into the jungles with incredible medicine men and medicine women who have a deep connection to the earth, and they've showed me quite a bit about the expression of being human. And so what's changed my life dramatically is the people who hold a lot of the sacred wisdom in the jungles and in the mountains themselves, and their connection to the earth, and I think that's who I've learned the most from.
What were you doing in the jungle?
Yeah. Well, I've been. It's kind of a longer story, but the short
Make it
version is
short,
I was.
please. Yes.
Yeah, I'll make it short. The short version is I was working with, I continued to work with medicine men and medicine women that the Western world will call shamans. They wouldn't call themselves that, but and they work with sacred plants and plants like ayahuasca, wachuma, and tobacco, and all kinds of incredible plants to strip away the cultural programming and go back to who we are as human beings. And so what I do in the jungle is my own inner work, but also I get a lot of executives and CEOs that are very, very, very successful financially, and they've hit the so-called top, and they end up going with me.
What was your first like interest to go in the jungle? Did you wake up one time and you say, you know what, I think from next year I'm going to be spending my time in the jungle? What really spurred you on? Who inspired you to go there?
Sure. What inspired me to go there was I was frustrated because I had spent so many years since I was 20 years old meditating every single day or almost every day, being a vegetarian, spending time in ashrams and reading all these self-help books and even teaching self-help, transformation work. And it didn't seem to, there was still something missing. And also, as a young kid, I never did drugs. I never even drank in my life. And my friend sent me this documentary, and it said he said you should check out what these shamans are doing in the jungle. It looks really hardcore. You haven't done that? And I said, no, I haven't. I called my mom. I said, I'm going to the jungle. She said, what are you doing? You're going to get hurt. And then I decided to go because I had to follow my own soul's journey. So I went, and then. And that's what brought me there was because I couldn't get the answers. I couldn't get the answers in the mainstream Western culture.
Wow. So did you get your answer?
Yeah, I got that I was really seeking the truth of what it is to be human. I wanted to discover the truth, and what I realized was that was a trap in itself. And always seeking the truth led me to like answering the question as if the universe was something I needed to solve, like it was a problem, like what am I here for? What am I doing here? And I realized that question itself was a trap. Instead of actually being the mystery, I was trying to solve the mystery.
How does ancient wisdom affect modern business?
Well, I think ancient wisdom needs to be brought into modern business, and how it affects that is what I'm finding is that my executives that are highly successful in their businesses, that ancient wisdom is a wisdom of connection, the wisdom of empathy, the wisdom of who we are as human beings. And what they discovered is that when the leaders themselves develop more empathy for themselves and a deeper connection to the earth and their surroundings, they end up having more empathy for themselves as leaders, and then it transpires into their corporations and who they're leading. And through that empathy, their engagement of themselves and their employees goes up, and when their engagement goes up, their profitability goes up. So essentially, it's a leadership course of self-awareness in the jungles and beyond.
What is the most valuable thing you have ever given away?
The most valuable thing I've ever given away?
Yes.
That's a good. Oh, that's a good question. I think the most valuable thing I've ever given away is my love for this life itself, and yeah, that's it. It's really love, which is valueless and valuable at the same time, which is ultimately the real currency of this world.
Okay, let's talk about your book, Evaluationally Entrepreneur.
Sure. Yeah, that's a book I chose to write about some of the deep journeys in the jungles and with entrepreneurs, and how ayahuasca and wachuma and Sonora desert toad and tobacco and these incredible plants and of course some of them are not plants, but these incredible wisdom in the jungles and in the mountains themselves, how they can have a great impact on entrepreneurs. What people don't comprehend is that many of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world, they won't talk about it publicly, but they are working in the jungles and working with these medicine men and medicine women. But they don't say it because people have many opinions about this, and because they have public shareholders, they can't do that, so they keep it under wraps. But I can tell you from direct experience that most of the people that people look up to have spent time in the jungles with these medicine men and medicine women. and they have deep reverence for the connection to the earth that they reestablish for themselves.
So do you think people who are in a high place that we look up to, if they spoke about they go in the jungle, that they will be ashamed? They will be, why are they not coming out?
So, well, some of them do. Like, for example, Wayne Dyer, before he passed away, he talked about how he sat in the jungles a few times, but if all of a sudden, let's say somebody that very famous were to say it at the biggest levels, people have many programs about what these things are. Like, for example, they call them drugs or other things, when in fact they're actually ethogens designed to support us in our spiritual awakening. But the mainstream culture and the Western culture right now has deemed them to be wrong, and they make them out to be something not supposed to do, or that even make them illegal. That's why you have to go to the jungles to do this work, is because they're illegal in Western culture, which is really a crime against humanity.
Wow. How can this book help someone who's starting out in the business? How can we get really the good written out of this book?
If you're curious about, and you've done a lot of self-help work, you've listened to a lot of seminars, you've gone to a lot of seminars, and you are in a leadership position, this book is for you. If you're curious about what the most wealthiest entrepreneurs in the world that are, quote, successful, that have gone beyond that, and they want to know what's beyond achievement, and you want to learn about what might be available to us beyond the cultural programming, and if you've exhausted all measures, then you'll love this book.
Okay. Where do we find the book?
On Amazon.com. You can also get it in audio version. I want to warn people that I'm not a very good reader, but I decided to read this book myself, and so I read it out, and if I would have redone it, I would have hired somebody, but I did the best I could to just read the book myself, so it had authenticity, but they can get it on Amazon.com and Audible. It's an audio version.
And if someone wants to connect with you or call you, reach out for you, how can we get connected to you?
Yeah, they can go to jeffreyslayter.com. That's JeffreySlayter.com. And there's thousands of documentaries. There's conversations with my dad on it, where we talk about building, what it takes to build a $100 million company and some of the pitfalls of that. There's so much free information. People should go there and grab it.
Okay. So, Glenn, there will be more from Jeffrey in a moment. If you are finding Jeffrey's journey interesting and you are ready to hear more, come and listen to the full version of the interview at onlinesuccessjourney.com. If you are on Online Success Journey already, click on part 2 of Jeffrey's journey and you'll get more tips to help you with your own life and business. And don't forget, you can access all other Online Success Journey interview podcasts on the site as well. That's a wrap, Clan. Remember, success is a journey. Patience and Jeffrey.
This is not the end of the journey. We hope you've enjoyed listening to part 1 and want to be sure you know there is a second part to this and every journey podcast at onlinesuccessjourney.com, filled with even more success tips, uplifting stories, and even a bit of fun. There are dozens of episodes only available to the members of the Online Success Journey clan. Check out the website and click on Join the Clan for more information. Patience would like to thank you for listening to this podcast, and she has a free audio gift for you at her website. Go to onlinesuccessjourney.com for instant access to this gift. Of course, you know that listening to the journeys of others helps each of us chart our own path. So make sure you're subscribed to be notified as each new interview is posted. There are so many ways to stay connected to the Online Success Journey and to listen in. And if you're enjoying the podcast, we appreciate your help in telling others. One of the best ways to share the benefit you get is to rate and review it at Stitcher and other sites by clicking the stars or completing the ratings form, by clicking thumbs up and leaving a comment on YouTube, or liking and sharing the podcast on social media. To review the podcast within iTunes, simply open iTunes to the podcast, click on Ratings and Reviews, then write a review. On behalf of Patience, and until next time, thanks once more for listening. It is our hope that this podcast will guide you on your own online success journey.